How does public perception bias influence a criminal verdict? Imagine sitting in a courtroom where everything hinges on what the jury believes. Now picture how outside stories and opinions might sway those beliefs even before the trial begins. That's what public perception bias is all about. It's the way what people see in the news, hear from friends, or read online can shape their opinions about a defendant's guilt or innocence. This bias can sneak into the courtroom and influence the verdict, even if the law says jurors should decide only on evidence presented during the trial. When a crime is covered heavily in the media, it often creates a narrative that sticks with people. If the story shows a defendant as clearly guilty, jurors might start to believe that without even hearing all the facts. This is called pretrial publicity. It can make jurors think they already know the outcome, which can be unfair to the defendant. On the other hand, if the media portrays the defendant positively or neutrally, jurors might lean toward not guilty. The emotional stories, especially those highlighting community anger or victim suffering, tend to push jurors toward guilt. Media often sensationalizes crime stories by focusing on the most dramatic or negative parts. This can reinforce stereotypes, especially against certain groups, and make jurors carry biases into the courtroom. Because jurors are members of the community, they might unknowingly bring these biases with them. This can make it harder for defendants to get a fair trial, which is a core principle of the criminal justice system. Defense attorneys are aware of this problem. They work hard to counteract outside influences by asking for a change of venue to find a more impartial jury. They also question potential jurors carefully during the jury selection process to identify any biases. Sometimes, they ask the court to limit publicity about the case so that jurors are not influenced by outside stories. They also reminded jurors that their decision should be based only on evidence shown in court, not on what they have heard elsewhere. In the end, public perception bias can push jurors toward a verdict of guilty or not guilty based on outside opinions rather than facts. This can threaten the fairness of the trial and the justice system as a whole. That's why it's so important for defense teams to recognize and address these biases, making sure every defendant gets a fair shot at justice.